Welcome to the regular meeting of the City of Morgantown Board of Zoning Appeals. Please turn off all cell phones or other devices that may disrupt these proceedings. It is the duty of this board to consider requests for relief from the requirements of the city's zoning regulations, to consider conditional use permit requests, and to hear administrative appeals. The board conducts business in the following order: review, amend, and approve minutes of a previous meeting. We will then move to unfinished business, pass on to new business, and then entertain announcements from staff. Each request is heard in the order that appears on the agenda. For each conditional use and variance request, the following is done. I will introduce the agenda item, and the planning division will present a staff report which may or may not offer a recommendation. The applicant agent will be asked to present their justification for the request, which may include questions by members of the board. I will then open a public hearing to hear testimony in support of or in opposition to the request. Rules regarding public testimony are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify during the public hearing may do so once recognized by me, or in lieu of oral testimony, submit written testimony to the chair. All recognized speakers must approach the podium, state their name and address for the record, and speak clearly into the microphone. All comments must be addressed to the board, should be relevant to the application, and may not be of a personal nature or personal attacks. All speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the speaker, that time will not be counted toward his or her total of 5 minutes. If there's a large number of speakers, including many who are part of groups of organizations, we may, to avoid repetitive comments, elect to ask for a representative to speak on behalf of the group or organization. Speakers are notified that irrelevant comments or comments of a personal nature or personal attacks may result in the speaker forfeiting his or her opportunity to participate in the public hearing. I may elect to recognize the applicant agent at the end of the public hearing to provide rebuttal or additional comments, which will be limited to an additional 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the applicant agent, that time will not be counted toward the total additional 5 minutes. After all testimony is heard, I will declare the public hearing closed, and no further public comment will be permitted. Uncivil, unruly, and/or disruptive behavior at any time during this meeting is prohibited and will result in removal from the public meeting. State law requires the board to consider findings of fact for each conditional use and variance request. The request cannot be granted unless a majority of the quorum present finds in the positive of all the findings of fact. The board may elect to continue the hearing to another date if it needs additional information. Applicants and requesting parties will be notified in writing by Planning Division of the board's findings and conclusions. Regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, decisions of the board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County within 30 days upon receipt of the written notification from planning. Any work done relating to decisions rendered by this board during this 30-day period is at the sole financial risk of the applicant. Thank you for your consideration and respect for these proceedings and the opinions of all meeting participants. We're going to call to order. Ms. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Platter is absent, I believe. Mr. DeWitt. Mr. Misfeld. Here. And Mr. Benson is present. I'd like to state that we do have a quorum, to state that for the record. All right. We have meeting minutes to consider from the regular April 16th, 2025 meeting. Any comments, suggested emendations, revisions? I move that we accept the meeting minutes from the April 16th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
All those in favor of accepting minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. We have accepted the meeting minutes from April 16th, 2025 regular meeting of the Morgantown BZA. All right, we're going to move to no unfinished business. I don't see any on the agenda. Moving to new business. First case is conditional use 25-018 Chris McDonald, 341 High Street. Request by Chris McDonald for conditional use approval for a restaurant private club use at 341 High Street as required by section 1331.04 of the city's planning zoning code regarding permitted land uses. City Tax District 11 in the 2nd Ward, Tax Map 26A, Parcel 106 in the B4 General Business District. Just a moment.
The applicant seeks to remodel a retail space into a restaurant private club at the above referenced location. The referenced site building is roughly 9,953 square feet. In the packets, as well as up on the screen, is showing a kind of the site location of where this would go. Downtown, the next one kind of shows the current rendition of the site plan. Of note, there are, if it'll let me, well, on the top left up there is seating outdoors as well as seating inside, and that's kind of the general layout of how it would look. Based on the conditions listed above, found in the packet, the applicant requests the following, which is the conditional use for restaurant private club. There, at this time, was no menu submitted, and that concludes staff report.
Alrighty. Do we have a representative for this case?
Yes, sir.
Please approach, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Chris McDonald, currently at 63 Bluegrass Village, Morgantown, West Virginia.
Would you like to speak to what you're proposing?
Yeah, we are trying to renovate a current retail space. It was the old space of University's T-shirt shop on High Street. We plan to put in a upscale craft cocktail bar and a finer dining restaurant in that space. Trying to kind of fill a gap for a more adult-oriented restaurants options downtown. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're planning to do, or hoping to do.
And so primarily here for the conditional use?
Yes.
And you don't have seating challenges, there aren't parking considerations, it's just primarily for the conditional use?
Just for the conditional use, no parking or anything. I mean, we're pretty used to the parking situations downtown. We own Von Blaze as well, which is directly behind that building, so we're well aware of the conditions.
Any questions this time? I think we're all set for now.
Okay.
We may call you back up.
Great.
Thank you. So, with regard to, it's restaurant, private club, are we, in terms of the food sales, are we back, can you speak to that, Mr. Thompson? Have those guidelines been reinstituted?
The requirements for food sales and a menu and stuff like that are still in the code. That reference, as well as seating requirements, it's serviceable seats for food, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe 47 indoor seats?
Yeah.
Correct? They're planning to provide 47 seats inside for food service, and then I believe about 4 outside for food service as well would be there, and that hits their 50 seats for food service per planning. But there has to be a food component as a part of it.
But we're still looking at the 50-seat minimum, too.
Yep.
What about the 1 year of operation?
So since they are operating Von Blaze, and they have been operating Von Blaze, that is covered through that, because they have previous experience within that year of a restaurant use. So they're covered on that
Technically, though, Von Blaze is just restaurant, or is it restaurant private club?
It's restaurant private
Wine. Beer and wine as well, okay. That's an important consideration. All right, thank you. But they'll still, well, aside from their operating Von Blaze, can we still, if we opt to have the financials reporting requirement for this particular case, if we grant this particular conditional use?
Could you elaborate on what you're asking? Section...
So we can opt to waive it, given that they've been operating Von Blaze, which is a similar establishment.
Yeah,
Or we can opt to still insist upon that financials reporting requirement, if we so chose.
If you chose, yeah, you could, I believe it would be up to the board. You'd have to vote on it, since it wasn't included as kind of a part of it. But that would be something that you could do if you desired to do so, to prove, to get that information of have they been operating in compliance with that section of the code for food service for that 1 year, if that is what the board wanted.
Any thoughts on that? I mean, they've been operating Von Blaze, so,
Yeah.
and it's a comparable, very similar establishment.
Is this to be more upscale than Von Blaze? Yeah.
Yeah, we consider Von Blaze kind of upscale casual, but this will definitely be more kind of fine dining area.
Kind of hitting that 10 to a 2 mark
Yeah.
type thing.
So drinks will be like a larger component of this business.
Yep.
Can you speak to the percentages, the relative percentages,
I mean,
food versus alcohol?
I would consider it probably 60/40. I mean, I'm from the food side, so I would probably push more, that I'm hoping that the food will be at least at 40%.
Especially if it's going to be upscale,
Yeah.
gross receipts, food, it's upscale dining, so,
We plan on doing, it's not going to be full service, 4-course type situation. We're going to be doing small plates, shareable, things like that. So it'll be less of a draw when people come in and kind of have a full meal than it would be like a full service restaurant.
right.
But we're still hoping that it's going to at least take up 40% of that revenue.
And then in terms of the alcohol service, what's your business model for that? Is it drinks to order to table, or is it,
We have,
I mean, I know you have bar space, but
Sure.
what's your concept for that?
servers would be coming to each table. It'll be, server contacted. They'll be ordering their drinks there unless they want to sit at the bar. So, it'll still be full service with cocktail servers if they so choose to sit at those tables.
I don't mean to interject. Could you take the stand again?
Oh, yeah, I'm
While you're- No, it's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Yeah, could you just maybe restate that while you're at the podium? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It'll still be a full service, serviceable area if they feel to sit at tables, and that's where they feel comfortable rather than the bar. We'll still have cocktail servers, a server staff that will come and assist them with whatever they need, food or drink orders.
All right.
I mean, what advantage would we have as a city to make them report their finances for a year?
Well, I was just putting that out there as a...
Yeah, I was gonna say, how is that actually enforced? Is that just up, during the application for the conditional use, or is it
It would
some
be like
kind
a
of
check-in
monitoring after?
afterward, it'd be similar to not the exact same thing, but how code enforcement does their kind of visits and goes through their checklist of Is this, an example of like a deck, or the stairs to it safe, things like that. It would be a similar investigation that, like, I don't say investigation, just an inspection that planning would do.
Review.
Review probably sounds more accurate. I'm just kind of going through the list of, all right, you're still serving food, you haven't stopped servicing meals or food items, you're not just like 90% or something, alcohol sales. It would be more to that effect of a review down the road, kind of for each calendar month would be roughly when we could do it to that
Worst
level.
case scenario, what if it was 90% liquor sales? Like, what does that mean?
They wouldn't be able to operate as a restaurant private club. Per city ordinance, it's in here and it's kind of wordy, but the kind of short of it being, if that food component, let's say they come here and they say, yeah, we're going to provide food service and et cetera, and then in the application, a year down the road, we find out that they're not doing that, that would be in non-compliant with the code ordinance stating that as a restaurant private club, you have to have a food component. And then that would just potentially not allow them to operate as a restaurant private club until that's remedied, or they go for a use that's more accurate to what they're trying to do. And that kind of would be how the process would go, the long short of it at least.
And if I could speak to that too, I mean, I'm a chef, so I'm food-focused as much as I can be. So unless, it takes a drastic turn in the business we're proposing to where no one wants to eat my food, I don't see any kind of problem with that at all.
I think if you found yourself drifting away from the 60/40, those percentages, given your mindset going into this, I don't know you at all, but I would think that it wouldn't, if you drifted away from food service, it wouldn't be viable.
No, I wouldn't think so either. It's such a huge component to what we plan on doing.
And it's patterned, what you're proposing is patterned very closely after what you've already got underway at Von Blaze.
It's similar, yeah, I mean, more upscale, but yes, definitely similar to what we already do. I mean, Von Blaze has worked very well for us, so, I mean, we already have a jump start in kind of, getting this rolling. We do want to be more upscale. It is going to be kind of a classier place. The food is definitely going to be more elevated than what Von Blaze sells, but it's still going to be the same quality. It's just going to be presented.
And the upscale, you're helping to fill a niche, I think.
That's kind of what we thought too.
It's a good fit for downtown. So, any other questions? Okay, thank you again. Sorry we didn't call you back up. I don't know, discussion? Okay. We're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to CON 25-018, 341 High Street, now's your opportunity to do so.
Good evening. Danielle Trumbull, 1141 Charles Avenue. This is not what I came to speak about, so it's going to be a little off the wall. I have been a longtime patron of their current establishment, Von Blaze. I'm very friendly with April and her partner, Chris. I spend the majority of my time downtown, and I do think that this is one of the types of establishments that is lacking. We've got, poor choices for our glizzies, and we've got Von Blaze for our sandwiches, but that really upscale kind of restaurant where my husband and I would go for a date night is something that, I leave downtown to go to, and frequently that results in me going outside of Morgantown. So I think that allowing this type of establishment in downtown makes a lot of sense, and I hope that it's approved so that I don't have to leave town.
Thank you.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, of course.
City Council suspended 60/40, and it is still suspended, not in place.
Oh, all right. Okay. I wondered about that because it was referenced in the packet.
Yeah, that's news to me, but that's the case, and that's the case.
Before Primanti's came and asked for that, we suspended it, and it's never been.
That's what I thought, but, so I just,
Then disregard.
Yes.
So,
I should have contacted you with that specific question, because it was referenced in, yeah. All right, thank you.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Name and-
Tom's 301 Arch Street.
Perfect.
Yeah, I had lunch at Bon Blaze today. I agree with everything Danielle said. I'm not going to, but, this takes a space that's been vacant for years, puts it back on the, back into the revenue rolls, creating revenue, which is critically needed for all of the services the city provides, and creates a fantastic amenity for the community. Fine dining has been missing, sit-down, table service dining has been missing in downtown Morgantown since 10/2/2 unfortunately shut down. It's a great opportunity. Thank you for leaning in and leveraging yourself to potentially create this. So I hope you all approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Alfredo Cruz, 464 West Virginia Avenue. I'm not against it per se. I think it would be good, but my only worry is that it's kind of a common denominator we see around here, and Von Blaze is an example, is that they shut down multiple days during the week. And I think that kind of draws a lot of attention away from the establishment itself. So my only concern is like, again, having it open for 2-3 days a week is like also not, probably, sustainable. So, like I said, I do wish, and I think something like this is needed, but I just worry about something like Bon Blaze that's closed like 3-4 days out of the week, so.
Thank you, sir. Why don't we, we'll leave your technically rebuttal.
Second question.
Yeah, did you?
Well, I just had a
Go
question,
ahead.
I guess it would be for Chris. Is that the plan? What is the
Our initial opening, we would only be open Thursday through Sunday.
Thursday through Sunday?
But at the same time, places like this don't get frequented on Mondays,
Sure,
Tuesdays,
yeah.
and Wednesdays. So as a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense for us to open on those days.
Right.
It's hard for staffing, it's hard on our back end, it's hard on all those things. And as far as Bon Blaze goes, if I could just say something, the only day we're closed is Monday.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, could you reapproach? And then you can rebut as well.
Okay.
Can you speak to that, just that blanket
Yes,
statement
so
regarding?
We plan on being open Thursday through Sunday, doing brunch up there as well on Sunday, so it'll only be a half day. But those are the prime days to be open for this kind of establishment, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's when people want to go out to dinner. It's hard for something that's going to be more upscale like this to open on a Monday and a Tuesday and a Wednesday, paying our staff, which is, our payroll is going to be higher because we need to hire, echelon of people working there, because it's a higher standard place. You just don't make the money on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, unfortunately. So yes, right now we plan on only opening Thursday through Sunday. That may change down the line as business progresses. We will make those changes, but as of right now, that's just the way it is. And I think that's why a lot of restaurants close on Mondays and Tuesdays, Mondays specifically. It's just not a big
It's tradition.
It's just hard, and plus you need to give your staff time off.
Right.
So, and
That's also your risk if you're not working, you're not making money, it's your risk.
exactly,
Right, so it's
exactly.
it's not on the.
And just to say, specifically in this establishment, I'm gonna be the only one cooking. I need a day off too, it's just the way it goes.
Right.
Have you ever thought about just like a bar service for Wednesday type thing, like Wednesday, bring it up, so people can come out for lunch, have like a drink or a meeting or something type of thing? Is that a?
I mean,
Yeah.
we consistently are trying to think of different ideas to make those days busier. We certainly try certain different things down at Bon Blaze, running specials. We do, a drumming special on Wednesday just to draw people in. We've tried trivia, we've tried, a lot of different things. Some work, some don't. So we're not opposed to trying those things to try to make those days, viable, but unfortunately, that's the nature of the restaurant business a lot of times.
Right. No, that's reasonable, given what's reasonable for a business plan.
Right.
It's reasonable.
You're also cleaning up the space and taking care of a nice spot on High Street, regardless of whether it's open every day. It creates a nice storefront, a nice area, of course.
And you're
bringing
helping
more business in.
And, I mean, your focus is on the weekend, but what you're going to do is going to amplify, pedestrian or foot traffic on that section of High Street. So, which will benefit the other merchants,
I would hope so.
I would think. Any other questions? Okay, thank you again.
Yep.
Are your comments rebutting the? Okay, well, if you'd like to say, but maybe, sir, would you like to come up first, and then if you want to offer additional comments, by all means.
I'm Stephen Thorne, 427 Clark Street, Morgantown. I work pretty closely with April and Chris, both help design a lot of the space inside of the restaurant to come, hopefully. I think it's going to be a really amazing space, particularly in that area of downtown. There seems to be a lot of migrant people in the alleyway. I used to work at Classic, I just recently moved on from there, but I think bringing a place like that into that area will draw a more upper class type of people to that area, as well as kind of make the people who are at the other clubs around kind of want to be a little bit more respectable to the downtown area. Maybe not right at first, but over time I think people are going to want to be a little bit more classy, hopefully, but I really think it's going to be great for downtown, and especially in a historic building. I don't know if it's on the registry, but I'm pretty sure it's an 1800s building, so it needs to have something in it, and I think something classy and beautiful is the way to go. I just really want to open it, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay. So, discussion, questions? Seems pretty straightforward. They rescinded the reportage.
I don't think there's a requirement. I don't think we need to have them.
Yeah. Yeah, there aren't. So, Mr. Thompson, and I did contact the office, are there findings of fact for this case, or?
Yeah, there should be findings of fact for all the cases. Was that not presented to the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did reach out, and
Was it to Barb? Did you reach out to Barb and wasn't provided?
you weren't in the staff directory.
I wasn't there anyway, but,
Right. No, but there isn't,
potentially, what you could do, because every one of these on here did provide findings of fact, either, depending if it'd be all right, I could go print those off, and I know that doesn't give you the time to review them, but just so you could have them, or you could
you
potentially,
need to be able to reference something.
yeah, that can be done if that would be okay with you guys. Okay, so.
Do we need to,
I have one question I can
Like,
ask. you guys.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you want, I can then ask my question, or do you need to be here?
I can,
Oh, I was just going to ask, is the parking, the outside parking, is that going to take away from the street parking like Gibby's? Is that the same situation, or is that, okay?
Any outdoor seating that we're providing is going to be in the Wall Street alley, and there's plenty of room, we feel, in that alley for small cafe tables.
I guess on the subject of that as well, before I go off, and I'll go and print those out for those and bring them to you guys, that any, for the conditional use on it just applies for the use. So if there's any issues with, right-of-way or concerns with fire or other departments regarding the seating outside, it'll be addressed separately. That's not
our
really-
purview.
Nope, correct. Yep, just wanted to put that out there, so I'll go get that.
Great, thank you, sorry about the...
No, it's all good. They should have been sent out to you guys.
Should we should maybe call just a recess while you're...
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. Sorry for the, we're going to call just like a 10-minute recess. Okay, so just 10-minute recess, we're going to pause and we'll come right back. Thank you for your... Is everyone ready to go?
226.
Okay, let's go. Session. We're good. Okay, so any additional comments from?
Other than, I'll read through the conditional use, just to have it read, and then
There is one
otherwise-
condition.
Yeah, there's one condition, the standard one, but I'll also read through it, so.
Please read it.
Now, please see the attached application to review the findings of fact listed, as staff have had no comments or modifications to the findings of fact. Staff as well have had no objections to the applicant's request for this it says variance relief, it should be for the conditional use. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the applicant conditional use in compliance with Section 133105 of the city's code, the new restaurant private club shall be subject to the following condition, being the condition of any other modifications or changes to the site plan shall be compliant to the city's planning and zoning code, or the applicant shall seek additional variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then that's all the conditions. I guess of a note, it was stated earlier, but they will still have to obviously go through the standard permitting process for the fill out and then other concerns through different departments. But this is just for, again, purview of the board and plannings for the conditional use. So just wanted to state that again.
With regard to the findings of fact, I think it's straightforward. There is a not insignificant change in proposed use from retail to, it's a different use. But it's not incompatible with the existing structure.
Yeah, we need more non-student-based nightlife in Morgantown.
The other, consideration is it's not no small thing to grant conditional use for restaurant private club with respect to alcohol sales, but the owner-operator has a proven record of doing that very thing at a comparable establishment in the immediate vicinity.
I vote we accept the finding of fact.
Seconded.
Okay, so we have a motion we've reviewed the findings of fact. We have a motion to accept the findings of fact. Mr. DeWitt made the motion, seconded by Ms. Cook, Mr. Misfelt. All those in favor of granting or accepting the findings of fact, how do we vote? Aye. Aye. Do we have a motion to grant the conditional use for CON 25-018 for 341 High Street? And I will second that motion. So we have a motion to grant the conditional use for CON 25-018. Seconded. With the condition as read into the record by Mr. Thompson. All those in favor of granting the conditional use?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we voted unanimously to grant your requested conditional use. You will receive written notification, typically 7 to 10 business days from planning. Keep in mind that any decision that we render, whether positive or negative, it can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County. And during that appeals, for that window, that appeals window, any work that you do at your sole financial risk. Thank you for coming down this evening, and good luck with your endeavor. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our second case, CON 25-027, Adelheid Schulk. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. At 324 Leonard Street, request by Edelhard Schuck for conditional use approval for a restaurant fast food use at 324 Leonard Street as required by Section 1331, .05 of the city's planning zoning code regarding permitted land uses, City Tax District 9, First Ward, Tax Map 40, Parcel 222 in the B1 Neighborhood Business District.
The applicant seeks to develop a lot into a restaurant fast food use at the above referenced location. The previous use was a salon/barber shop use. Please see the staff enhanced maps below, as well as those who do not have it up at the screen. So the first kind of attached item is a just site map, similar to the one before it, showing where it's located, the property, and the kind of surrounding makeup of it. An additional thing to note that was kind of hard to visually show is that, but it was stated in the written portion of it, that pretty much square that is just that corner lot is zoned as B1. It's not zoned as another use, just as it was in here in written form, but just to kind of verbally say and to give you the visual, their kind of blue outline is already an existing B1 district.
But, so, the extent of the B1 district is restricted to just this parcel?
It is just that property. Yep, in this...
the entire blue spot?
No, the square. Like, their parcel is just zoned B1.
I see.
There's a couple other little kind of dotted parts around this part of Morgantown that are similarly zoned B1 in a kind of surrounding residential. It's like single properties. My understanding of why is because those were pre-existing businesses at a time whenever this was revisited, and those businesses wouldn't have functioned. For the example, the salon, to my understanding, in a B1, you could have that. If it was R1, then that doesn't obviously work. And then my guess would be, instead of kind of saying, hey, you're a non-conforming pre-existing use, they just zoned those places where those businesses existed to make them to where they could still conduct business, and whenever the zoning was probably redone. That's my best guess of it, because the other locations were also kind of pre-existing, at one point in time, a commercial a use.
But they weren't necessarily, but the district wasn't necessarily zoned as B1. They were just allowed to operate as businesses.
Whatever the zoning was before, I don't know. And at some point when they did the kind of zoning overview, change of it, that's what this just happened to have been zoned, instead of just kind of wiping over it as an R1. When, however long that was there, that didn't make sense, would be my understanding of it. Why zone it as an R1 when there's been a salon there that was probably at the time operating for there. But that was just my speculation on it. It was before my time with the city. But just as a note, it's already zoned as a B1. This isn't for like a rezoning or anything. That section is already a business district. So. Moving on from that is to the kind of pictures that were provided of the property now. The one on the left is an indoor image of what the kind of interior of the structure you'll see on kind of the next more site plan, as well as the side view of the property from West Virginia Ave facing towards the building, just as kind of some supplemental visuals of what it looks like now in the state of that versus into the kind of presented site plan of it. It's attached in the packets as well as up there. Kind of giving the layout, the blue square is that structure, that building on the left side of that previous slide. And then there's seating outside as well as some seating inside, and then kind of service area as well as just kind of their site layout. The applicant can maybe speak more to it if the board wishes to. There. And then the final one is the logo kind of sent in for it, as well as I hope it was sent. There was as well as a menu of what their items of service would be. So then they can speak to that as well if that wasn't provided, but they did submit that in. So based on the conditions listed above in the packet, the applicant requests the following, which is conditional use for restaurant fast food. As an additional note, the variance that follows this one is related to this project as well, and that is a variance for parking, and the board is more than welcome to take it kind of one at a time or do it all at once. Similarly, we have done. It is up to you all, since this one, as well as the variance next up, is in regards to 324, the Adel Hyde fast food kind of restaurant use.
Right. Do you, does anyone have a preference? I'd rather take them individually.
I don't mind putting them together, but if you want.
Really?
I don't mind.
I like them individually.
You want them individual? Okay, so.
What do you think, Mr. Misfit? Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing them together either, but we can do them individually.
If you want to do them together,
Let's do them together.
I think
do it together.
Makes sense, but
Okay.
I know there's some dissent on it, so it's easy to maybe break that.
No, we'll do them together. All right. Do we have a representative for this case?
I'm Adelheid Schaub, 108 Marcus Drive, Morgantown, and I'm here today to propose an amazing neighborhood ice cream shop in First Ward. We specialize in condemned and dilapidated and vacant properties, so we like to bring those back and kind of give them new life again. We've worked almost exclusively in Greenmont up to this point, but we're attracted to this particular lot because of the B1. It gives us a little bit more opportunity in terms of what we can put in there, and also because it has a lot of green space. We wanted outdoor seating for the restaurant as well. I don't know if you just want to ask questions or if you want me to go into greater detail of what we kind of have envisioned.
Are you a shop, like Shop of Morgantown shop, like Professor shop?
Yes.
Okay.
There's not many of us.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you speak to the outdoor seating?
Right, so the structure itself is actually quite small. It's only 500 square feet, and probably only by the time we put serving area in and then the required bathroom, probably only have space for maybe 2 tables inside. And then outside is really where I feel like the value is in this piece of property, is we could do an entire outdoor seating area with perhaps like a little area to the side with like a sandbox for small children or whatever, if you want to bring, your kids to get ice cream and they can kind of play. It's very European style based setup where it's right next to the park, which is convenient, but also we have enough green space there where everyone could be on site eating ice cream outside. So this would be a seasonal type of business. This would not be open year round.
So maybe 4 months?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5 months depending on how warm it stays, but it's not, this is not a winter type deal.
So, and then, so the interior seating, it looks like there's, and I don't know what occupancy is, but it looks like it's 32 on the inside. Is that right, or is that? Or is that, no, actually, that's total.
I mean, I
For
don't
the
know, 8.
inside, interior and exterior?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, that's. I
So
mean,
it is, the structure is quite small then?
Very, very small, yes. Yeah.
Well, that's a modest number of people, actually.
I like the name.
Yes. And the logo.
Yeah, I like the logo.
It's very German inspired.
Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned was that you specialized in, upgrading other properties. What other properties have you done? What other shops have you done? Or-
We haven't done any shops, but we've done several multi-unit buildings. So the Edwards House on Wood Avenue, the old Second Ward School Annex we've done. Those are probably the more notable ones. I did a lot of work on the Whitman T. Willie House. The Kearns Fort, we've been working on that one, just got a grant to get a new roof for that. So we hope to develop that as well into something, but again, that is in an R1A zone. So it really hinders what you're able to do, whereas this happens to be on a B1 parcel.
After you revitalize them, do you continue to own the properties?
Yes,
Okay. And you'll be running this establishment?
I would not.
Okay.
I have no intention of running another
Oh,
business.
okay.
I got enough.
Gotcha.
I just want to build it.
Oh. So You would continue to own it, though?
Correct.
Lease it, okay,
I would work in partnership with whoever is managing it.
right,
But I personally would not be there slinging ice cream all day.
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. No questions? Discussion, okay. We are going to go ahead and open the public hearing for, so we're going to combine these then? Okay, we're going to conduct a public hearing for CON 25-027, 324 Leonard, and the VAR 25-026. So anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case?
Before going to that, would it make sense to go through what the variance request is for those who might not be aware of that?
Sure, so we have, okay.
If we're combining them.
So, CON 25-027, 324, that is for permitted land uses. And then VAR 25-026, that's also references 324 Leonard Street, request by Adelheid Shupp for variance relief from section 1365.04 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding off-street parking requirements. City Tax District 9, First Ward, Tax Map 40, Parcel 222 in the B1 Neighborhood Business District.
Yep, the applicant is seeking variance relief from section 1365.04 regarding the number of required off-street parking spaces. The number of spaces would be 9 parking spaces, of which 1 being ADA accessible. Please see staff enhanced maps below, as well as imagery. We just kind of looked at this, but here's, the site that we just looked at related to the property, 324, as well as back to the site plan. As you can see, no parking is being provided on the site plan. So based on these conditions, as they are listed above in the packet, the applicant requests the following variance relief in regard to their off-street parking requirements. And then that would conclude this staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Can you speak to, in terms of the on-street parking, is that restricted? Is it permitted? So in other words, do residents submit, apply for?
Like, is there already people who park nearby on the street?
Yeah,
Is that-
similar to,
Like a parking pass.
like a parking pass, similar to like South Park, the South Park, for much of South Park.
I'm not knowledgeable on it, I don't believe so, but if members of the public could correct that, to my knowledge, I'm not aware. I do believe that one of the roads is striped where you can't park on it. I can't remember if it's Leonard or West Virginia Avenue, but I do believe there is either yellow or blue lining of some kind on one of those. But the other one does, excuse me, does have people parking on the street.
Right. So it's, so it's coded, color-coded, blue or...
I believe,
No, it's not?
It's not blue curb parking there.
no.
It's not.
I think there is yellow striping on one of them, I believe.
It's probably restricted on Leonard, it's a narrow street.
One of them I know for sure is restricted.
Restricted but not permitted.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
How do you
you,
enforce that?
that would just be if it's a designated area where you can't park on street. If someone was to drive by and, park on the street, it's marked, so my assumption the police would ticket it.
We have 3 letters of dissent based on parking, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, my guess is that's in regard to West Virginia Avenue, because, I think it is 324 Leonard that has that limited to kind of no on-street parking. But when I went to put the signage out, there were people parking on the street for West Virginia Avenue. So there is, at least visually, people who do park in the street on that street.
Like I think it was noted, most residents have off-street parking in that area.
That would, I believe so.
Before we... There's not sufficient space to even create any on the parcel.
It also mentions most of it will be foot traffic, potentially.
I mean, people will park.
That's true, but there's still...
They'll park at the park,
Yeah.
if they're gonna park somewhere.
Right. That's what I-
Right. So can you, Mr. Thompson, can you speak to, I mean, we're looking for 9 spots, but
Yeah, does the parks parking, like Matthew mentioned, count as, like, they can leverage some of that parking?
No, not in the sense of, there are some conditional options where you can supplement on-site parking with off-site but off-street parking, and because it's R1 around it, it doesn't really apply. The distance is too large, and then also kind of the use for it, they would have to have some sort of agreement. But
Yeah.
to be eligible for that as an option, it would have to be different districts that are there. That's more for like kind of business districts, near business districts, or in the same district, that are sharing communal parking or something to that.
because it's not even as if there's like available parking on an immediately adjacent residentially zoned parcel. They're non-contiguous.
Yeah, if the scenario was maybe there was just like a parking, just like one of the random parcels nearby, like the neighbor one happened to be a parking lot, they potentially could, but that's not the scenario, obviously, and even then it would kind of be a little iffy just because of how the districts are, since those are R1. And this would be interacting with like a business district. But yeah, the parking is too far.
Yep.
For it.
And how many spaces are they requesting?
They need 9.
I believe it is 9 spaces. Yep, 9 spaces, one of which would have to have been ADA. So 8 plus 1 spaces, which have to be, I believe, about 8.5 wide and 12 deep, 16 deep east.
Okay, so before we open the public hearing, since one of those spaces needs to be ADA compliant, do you have a plan
Yeah.
for making provision for that ADA compliant?
You can pull up the front Leonard,
Yeah, please approach.
right in front, like where the front door is. I mean,
Right.
the Leonard Street is wide enough to park on one side, so you could easily put an ADA right in front of the front door. I don't see why that would be an issue. It's on a corner, so not only do you have the Leonard parking on one side, but you also have the West Virginia on the other side, and then obviously the public park right down the street with a giant parking lot, but.
I mean, the only issue I see is that I don't see the parking layout in the plan, so I can't, that makes good sense.
I didn't know I had to have parking since I'm trying to get a variance
Gotcha.
for parking, so I didn't provide any, but, I mean, this is, one of my concerns was I didn't want to take away the green space for parking.
Sure, and that's a good advice. The comments we've received are in reference to the parking, and then we're trying to figure out where to put those 9 spaces seems to be the crux of this.
Understood. I do feel like most people will walk, though. I think it's more of a walkable business than actual.
And that's probably what will happen in reality, but just given, just zoning regs, you have to make some kind of provision for 9.
Could they request a variance based on limiting the parking down to less spaces? Is that
That would be up to the board. So what you could do is put conditions on it if you wished for that. So the scenario being the applicant has asked for variance relief for parking in its entirety. Their argument being the size of the lot as well as wanting to maintain that green space. And if the board feels it's maybe appropriate to allow for an amount of spaces that could be varianced or something to that effect. The board would just have to vote saying we'd like to amend this to state they're only getting 7 spots, something to that effect, but they have to still provide those 2. It would just be whatever verbiage in the way that you guys present it and vote on it. But as is, the applicant is asking for variance relief from those spots, the 8+1 ADA, and it's either kind of granted with those or denied with those unless amended by the board.
Because I think it's more likely that staff is going to be driving the vehicular traffic, people coming to work, just given the nature of the business, given it's close to White Park, it's recreational space, it's probably going to be primarily pedestrian traffic.
I mean, I think the requirement for like 188 parking,
Yeah, that's reasonable.
That's one of it. They can park along the street and then waive the parking for the rest of the front.
So what about the space in the front of the building, which I'm seeing?
Outdoor seating.
Is that all outdoor seating?
Yeah,
It's a green space.
she kind of needs that to make it viable. Because the interior seating, it looks like it's a maximum of 8 patrons inside, and then the balance, it's all exterior seating.
Well, a lot of people aren't, they're just going to be walking across the park.
Yeah.
Over to the park after.
Exactly, so it is going to
They're
be.
not going to be there.
pedestrian.
I mean, well, they could ask for less seats or spaces just by reducing the seating, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's for every 2.5 seats, they have to provide 1 space, and for every 2 employees, they have to provide a space as well. There's requirements for stacking spaces, but that's for like drive-throughs and things like that, which they're not doing, so that's not applicable. It is for just number of seats as well as number of employees. That's,
Because that's the issue, is that having more seating encourages more cars, because you have somewhere to sit,
Yeah,
Less seating,
more
there isn't
seating,
more
more people.
pedestrian heavy, it has to be.
Yeah, if they had less seating, they'd have to.
Outside is going to encourage more cars.
Yeah, more people to go there, therefore that, at least per the code, the logic being, well, if you're providing more seats and more employees, presumably there'll be more traffic at, that use.
And how much outdoor seating is there?
I believe in total, there's roughly around 20, I think.
Yeah, about 20.
Does the
About
bar
20.
dynamic correspond to, like, if you have a bar, there's kind of seating, is that correct?
Yeah, if there was, they don't have, I don't believe any other than like kind of like bench table seating, but if they did have like a bar or something where you would sit and be able to eat your ice cream,
Yeah.
it would add to the amount.
To try to encourage more pedestrian, are you anticipating like walk-up service? Is it window or?
If you look on the side, the front
Is it-
door goes towards Leonard, and on the side there's going to be a covered area with like a window that opens.
That, so there is a service
Walk-up
window there,
available
okay.
there.
Because that's kind of gonna encourage pedestrian traffic, I kind of think.
It's a terrible looking building.
So what about that sloped area mentioned, shown on this map? Is there any way to grade that and
There's
make
an
it?
alley right behind it, so I think it's probably too slow to do.
Is this part of the property? Is it included in the property itself?
Well, whatever the right-of-way is off of the street is probably another 5 feet, so
Because I can't see how wide this section is.
It's pretty steep slope.
Might be
It's got pretty.
some hard to see in there, but.
There's no way to bench into that to put is there any way to bench into that and make a parking spot or two?
not without a huge retaining wall.
Yeah.
And it would also have to be a parking spot that's situated in a way to where it's not on like both streets. I think that would be more engineering, but I do believe that there is some kind of regulations or concerns that they have if you have like a parking space on like the corner of a street, on how they look at the total frontage of that, like as if it was a driveway, or something to that, and don't like cars like backing out directly into the street from that angle.
Because if you gave up that rear table, and I'm not for taking trees out, but you might be able to put 3 spaces there. It's certainly deep enough, it's 21 foot, so to the left of the structure.
I love the trees around that park, though.
Right. Yeah, I'm not for taking trees out.
Are those
But-
trees they're adding, or?
No, I'm saying, put the spaces here,
Oh. Yeah, that's what I was
at the foot of the slope. But then you're losing a table. But then in terms of, the viability of your business and sales volume, not that's our primary consideration, but just to try to work with you. You've got the service window, you've got people walking up, not necessarily even, it's a lovely spot. You're trying to encourage people to feel welcome, but if you've got the service window in terms of like losing, if you gave up that table, provided you could do, although that wouldn't work in terms of parking because it's directly off an active street.
It can
So
be
that's-
directly off a street. It's just in the conversation being that like kind of sloped area with the alley, in the scenario of like if they had,
Well, it's at the foot of the slope, though.
But I think the issue is with the neighbors, like the neighbors aren't happy with the idea of
Right.
paying for parking and losing parking and et cetera, so it's like if we don't want to create a bad work environment for the people that are there by angering the neighbors around the establishment. So we have to figure out something to do with the parking.
Right, so that's why I'm suggesting, sacrificing that table.
Yeah.
And putting 2 or 3 spots there.
If that's a trade.
Again, I'm not for taking out trees, but,
Yeah.
and that's your ADA. Put the ADA on the end, and then you've got maybe 2 spaces. You've got the 1 ADA and 2 spaces.
But like, again, I think Matthew pointed this out, I mean, people are going to be parking at the park, parking around, walking to it, so it's more of like a city requirement, just to make the people, the neighbors, happy that we haven't designated parking on the street for the establishment. I think that's our risk.
But if we,
I think the neighbors probably want them at the park.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
but if we suggest this as a possibility, that's taking some of the pressure off of the on-street parking. Possibly.
Why can't it be right in front of the front door on the street? I mean, there aren't any residences there,
Right?
so I don't know why.
Yeah,
That's already-
planning. Did they have an idea of where that would go?
like if there was to be parking provided,
On West Virginia Avenue,
No, on Leonard.
on Leonard.
on Leonard, really anywhere in front, okay, it's up there. If you're looking at the top, pretty much anything from the kind of front facade of the structure forward and left, I mean, obviously there would have to be work, but any of those, at least per planning, could realistically be turned into spots. That would mostly be engineering, if the design of it works, if the size of it works. For planning purposes, we just kind of check to make sure that they're of the correct size, for when they're kind of striped, if it's that 8 foot by whatever number.
16.
16. And if it's that, as well as it's paved, then for planning, that's all right. We kind of defer to engineering to say, hey, per engineering codes and standards, is this okay as a parking spot? But, yeah.
Do we need to find that out?
Yes.
We need to find that out before we,
Sailor, can you bring up like the Google Earth image of it? So they
The
get a
top
better
down.
feel for, like,
That one? Or I can go to Google Maps if you
If you
would
go to
like.
Google Maps, yeah, then they can see that that side street really isn't utilized by that many people. I mean, most of us have off-street parking behind our houses. Anytime I've been down there, I've been able to pull right up, so.
and adjacent to that sloped area, you said there's an alleyway there, an active alleyway?
That's how you get to most of the
Delaware.
off-street parking for the West Virginia Avenue residences.
Okay. Because if we go with, I guess the 80-foot dimension is from the corner of West Virginia and Leonard, and I'm assuming it's the corner of the active alleyway. If we take that full 80 and divide it by the required 16, that's a maximum of 5 spots, one of which would be an ADA.
Yeah.
So, if that's a good number, divided by 16, that's 15 spots, maybe put the ADA.
Would you like a street view of it or a
Put some
top-down?
spaces in here.
With the layer?
Get rid
That's what I'm
of some
saying.
tables.
Right.
Get rid of some
I think
tables.
that's, I think that,
Yeah.
And then that's taking,
We can look and see and then
their neighbors' concerns with,
Yeah.
because I agree, it's really tight in there.
I also agree that on-street parking would work too, but we have all these people that are, we have to represent.
If it'll,
the community
okay,
As well.
we'll just have to drop
In this.
into it.
Okay, like I
I
said, right
think
here.
that's a good compromise.
And then just shift.
Not take the
She doesn't
tables.
necessarily have to lose the tables, just shift them.
Sacrifice a small amount of that green space. Because the green space technically, if you want to think about it, is the park.
Right,
Not to say that it's not, but just, we have to make people happy.
right. Would you be open to that, like inset spaces?
This purchase agreement is actually contingent upon not putting in any parking spaces on the green space itself, so we don't sacrifice the green space.
Right.
And then there's kind of that
that's-
slope
that's a good view.
section.
No, you ain't with it.
Okay.
So everywhere in front there
Is
is
this,
potential parking.
is this your contingency or the
This is
property
my
owners?
contingency,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't even put, so the slope is actually, it's sloping in, all right, so that's not doable.
But right where that dirt spot is, right there, like, go back one.
Right on the corner.
Yeah, right in the corner, it looks like.
Yeah, the mouse doesn't really want to
Work with it, so I'm gonna move.
We need some place for the person that's working there to park.
Right. Because I think we should make provision for the ADA spot to be on the parcel somewhere. You know what I mean? Just in terms of someone in a wheelchair being able to navigate across the parcel from a vehicle.
So there's looking onto the property here.
I don't feel that was one of those, ability to fix that all.
Any perspective change on it, or?
Currently, the proposal says no parking in the existing property that you're proposing.
I would not like to remove any of the green space outside, yes, to put in concrete. When there's ample street parking right there. And if all we're talking about is one ADA spot, I mean, I just don't understand why it couldn't be right in front of the front door.
Well, really,
On the
ultimately, you're
street.
talking about 9 spaces, but
None, yeah, for a code that, I mean, is difficult to enforce.
well, you are talking about a neighborhood too, and the, I mean, I know Mondays is not too far down the road, but they do have parking. And even the Dairy Queen that was downtown, I mean, they had some places around there, they had some street parking, but there's lots around there too. That's the one thing that business doesn't provide where it's at.
I mean, for the
So if
honest,
you're not going to modify the green space, then we could totally ask that you propose benching into that space. I mean, that's the other option, is benching into that, putting in a retaining wall. That is the other option.
I mean, she's got on-street, it looks like there's enough for 8 spaces. One of which would be the ADA.
Well, on the street.
Yeah, on the street.
Well, that's what all these letters of dissent are about, is parking on the street. Maybe we should go to the.
What's the footprint of it to her lot?
Yeah.
See what's
So that's
that
8.
represents
And have
that.
it open,
So this is 80, divided by 16 is about five spaces. Not even taking into account and then
I don't
it's
think we need
8.
9, but I think,
And after that, you need the rest.
No, but what I'm saying is, in the area that's immediately adjacent to this B1, that's not R1, it's still zoned B1. There are 8 spaces.
whether she makes them or not is not our enforcement, is what you're saying? or what?
There are 8 public spaces, public parking spaces immediately adjacent to her B1 parcel on the street.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's okay.
That's what it is.
Okay.
That's not parking in front of the adjacent R1 zoned, the neighbors. I'm saying, based on the dimensions
Of the road.
on the plan, and each space, it's, engineering, it's 8 feet by 16 feet.
Okay.
If you divide 8 by 16, that's 5 spaces here,
Yeah,
and roughly
on the street.
3 on West Virginia Avenue. So she's,
They can't do there, right? Or they can.
All right.
They can do it on West Virginia.
can you speak to that, Mr. Thompson?
To what consideration?
Public parking on West Virginia Avenue.
Like
It's not-
on-street parking?
Yeah,
This is for off-street parking requirements. That wouldn't, like, if there's already existing, or to put in on-street parking?
To the label on-street parking as parking.
no, there's available parking, it's not,
Yeah,
it's not restricted.
That can be your rationale, but there wouldn't necessarily be any, like, condition of it, the condition.
We're gonna leave it for the public hearing.
We live on West Virginia.
well-
It, well,
We'll leave it for, let's
Public section
open the
of it.
public hearing.
but we can't really put a condition on Adelheid, or, if anybody else. would-
Yeah, because it's it's public, it's
Yeah,
All the
public
neighbors,
parking.
all the neighbors park along and block it, what is that?
Well, they're also
Right.
limited on what they can do off their own property. Like, wouldn't, they could.
Because it's public.
It's public property. So how would you condition, you know what I mean? How would that condition work for her of, like, conditionally, these spaces are provided in the public places? I
Right.
don't know how that would be a conditional. It could be a consideration of, your reasoning of maybe why the variance seems reasonable because you believe that there's public parking available nearby. But I don't believe we have the ability to, like,
Put a condition.
condition them to do work on public spaces, not on their property. Because this section is specifically for this use based on the number of seats for service, as well as employees needs to provide 9 spaces on property, not off property.
And I don't think that we should be reducing the number of, it's, the zoning regs, given the number of employees and the square footage, the capacity of the business, there's the requirement of 9 spaces. I don't think we should be reducing that number.
It's
I don't
also a
think so.
special case because
We
it's
could-
in a residential zone, like, it's a very odd situation, right? It's one-
That it's, yeah, right.
So
But
that-
it's still, but this particular parcel is still zone B1.
Right.
So how do we make that accommodation?
Open
In a
the
fair and-
hearing, which everybody says.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you like to add anything else at this time?
I just think if you want to bring neighborhood businesses back, requiring as many parking spaces is not going to make it feasible for a lot of these businesses to open. It's definitely a deterrent for new businesses to open.
Especially since your B1 is nestled in a
And
residential.
I know it's difficult, parking is big, and I knew people would be upset about
It's-
parking.
yeah, it's
but
tight over
I
there.
feel like it'll be a lot of people walking there.
But what do you mean by other businesses to open? This is the only spot that one could open.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, even in Greenmont, where we've tried to do something like this, we
Yeah.
can't because, like, one, the parking requirements are really, really difficult to meet, and two, there's not that many even ones.
And
So-
the trend is, nationally, the trend is, a lot of municipalities are, the pressure is to move back toward to multi-use.
Yeah. And an additional note, this is already a pre-existing B1. If anything's to go in here, it's business. That's-
Right, they're gonna fight the same issue next time, the next time, the next time.
Yeah, because the parcel size won't change.
And I think an ice cream shop by a park is probably an optimal.
I mean, that's all, that's, what else you can put?
I can put in a vape shop.
Technically.
Technically, I could.
Still gotta have parking. I mean, you still gotta have parking.
With a vape, I think you need more parking with a vape shop versus no, but seriously, an ice cream shop, it's more pedestrian oriented.
No, I think it's gonna fix that.
No, it's not going to be. All right. So nothing further at this time? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's go ahead and, okay, we're going to open the public hearing for these two cases, and for purposes of deliberation consideration, we have combined them. So again, this is public hearing for CON 25-027 and VAR 25-026, referenced as 324 Leonard Street. Anyone wishing to speak in support or opposition to, please step forward.
Hi, I'm Jessica McDonald, 447 West Virginia Avenue. I live right down the street from this property. I've been in the neighborhood for about 12 years. This property has been dilapidated and underused the entire time. I personally wanted to do something with it for a long time. I'm familiar with Adelaide's work. I know she would make it a really nice looking place. And I think that neighborhood businesses are really what makes a neighborhood vibrant. I mean, Mundy's is awesome, but it's got a limited use because only certain parts of the population like to drink. This would be open to all sorts of different people, and Jack Roberts Park is one of the best used parks in our city, I think. I remember when I first moved to the neighborhood, people called it the Pirate Park, and they would come there from other places just to be there in the park. And I've got friends in the neighborhood who've already thought about, could they operate some sort of business for all the people that come to the park and don't have any opportunity to purchase food or anything while they're there.
Right.
So I think this is a really cool opportunity. I see what you're kind of up against in terms of the parking. But I think a lot of the houses that are in this vicinity have off-street parking. I would say over 50%, if not 75%, have some sort of off-street parking. That street is never full of cars. Like, I just don't think that this is gonna pose a big problem for people that live in the neighborhood. Now, maybe if it's the most popular place ever, maybe, you know, but I think you do have that giant parking lot down at the park. You've got a lot of streets in proximity where people could park. I think this could be feasible. I think it could be a really great addition to the neighborhood, and I hope you'll support it.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Tilley. I'm at 468 West Virginia Avenue. I am directly diagonal from the subject property to the upper part of the picture there. I don't think parking's going to be a problem at all. There are 3 spots directly around my house, one on West Virginia and then 2 on Leonard that are always empty. I have off-street parking, just me, 1 car. So there's 3 spots right there, kitty corner to the subject property. The house across from me is vacant. You've got that empty, dilapidated lot that we're talking about in the park. I am the only house on that corner that has anything going on. It's dark. I don't like it. I want more stuff on that corner. And I think an ice cream shop is the perfect business. It's not going to be open late. There's not going to be any deep fryers that are making awful smells for the neighborhood. People are going to be in and out in 20 minutes, or it's going to be foot traffic. I'm not concerned at all about parking in the area, and I think that if anything's going to go in there, it's going to have to be something like an ice cream shop, and I completely support this project.
That's good to get your feedback, because, and Jessica's too, because that's kind of what I was worried about. We've got several letters of dissent from neighbors in that area saying it's going to be a massive issue, and if you're, adjacent to this property, and you're like, yeah, there's plenty of room, nobody's there, and it's kind of a dark spot, so that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if a third of the people walking their dogs stop by, this place is gonna make $1 billion, so it's gonna be great. Thank you.
Allay some of your concerns. Yes, sir.
Hi, Alfredo Cruz, 464 West Virginia. I live right next door to Ben.
Right.
And I agree, I fully support this, like 100%. And I would definitely rather have anything than a condemned building like right in front of us. And in terms of like foot traffic, Ben and I both work from home, and I'm at home most days, and there is a ton of foot traffic at Jack Roberts Parks, especially during the weekends. There's so many kids, families walking up and down both Leonard and West Virginia, and this just benefit, like you said, it's a gold mine, because there's so many kids that will go there after school, on the weekends, just, there's so much foot traffic in that area. And the lady that spoke before, she said it well, that there's just, it'd just be like a great place for it. And again, just like Ben said, I don't know like what else can go there that would like create even more ruckus. I think this is small, good, snacks for kids, like, building that home vibe that First Ward has is definitely all there. In terms of parking, like there's plenty of parking, and I don't see it as a huge issue. My only contingent with this is that there's like a huge dead tree. And it's that tree that's like right there in front of the house. That house, that tree it's like very old and it's completely dead. And it will be a little bit to get it out, but I think that does need to be removed. But other than that, like I said, I fully support this, and I think it'd be a great idea to include this, again, instead of having some condemned building that's been like that for years and years.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that
It's
part of the
certainly-
plan to remove that big dead tree?
Can you speak to that? Michelle?
Sycamore,
Yeah. Oh, it's a sycamore. Oh,
It's a
no.
giant sycamore tree, it's probably like 80 years old or 100, it is old. I don't know how dead it is, I probably have to have somebody look at it. The maples in front are pretty dead. Those that looked at, they're, I don't know. I mean, I hate to take out trees.
Right.
But it's like what makes it, feel like a cozy environment, so I try to keep as much as I can, and I know one of the maples for sure has to go.
Well, maybe from a, like a public safety standpoint.
Yeah, oh yeah, they'll be trimmed. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna let dead limbs fall on this wonderful structure, make it worse than it already is, so, it's, I'm not gonna do anything until we get this approved, and then we can start working on the property.
Knock the tree down, let it fall in the building, that's great.
No. All right, thank you very much. Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Andrea Gallagher. I'm at 332 South High Street, so not a direct neighbor, but very much in the neighborhood. I'm very much in support of this. I agree that businesses and retail businesses like this really do bring life to the neighborhood.
Yes.
I love the fact that this is an ice cream shop, because I think it means that the overhead for this business is going to be low enough that it can be survived just on the neighborhood traffic, and I think, or foot traffic. And I think that's why I'm much less concerned about either the parking or the traffic. The sheer fact that it's seasonal, that it's a reasonable hours, they can hire like high school students, right, who don't have to drive, they can be
Right.
local. I think that everything is set up for this thing to not be dependent on the same kind of parking requirements that we have set up elsewhere and that have prevented other businesses. So I think this is a very savvy approach. I'd love to see it in the neighborhood. One of the comments that I saw in the emails was concerns about the speed of traffic on West Virginia, that people
Yeah.
speed through along that, and that there's kids in the area. And I would like to say that that's not a strong point for me. I think the reason that people move through those neighborhoods so fast is because there is not enough foot traffic. And if you have businesses that are active and vibrant, or people are doing things, drivers are going to slow down, and they're going to realize that they should go someplace else.
That's a good point.
So I think I love what everybody said already. I hope you guys agree on this and let this thing be a reality.
I mean, it's certainly, what's being proposed, it certainly complements current use of White Park. And it complements,
Ice cream shop next to a park.
and it complements
To interject
residential
really
nature of
quickly,
the residence.
for the record, and just in case people didn't have enough copies of the correspondence to read it, could you read those into the record, just as a part of the public comment? That's kind of...
In their entirety?
Maybe not all of them, you can condense them if you wish, just acknowledge kind of their major points, if you could, on those
can do
emails. I could do it, or you could do it, we're okay with either. I would be happy to read them.
I agree, I think they should, a portion at least should be read into the record. I agree.
Yeah,
But
some of
before we
them
do
would
that-
like for it as well. They personally requested it would be read aloud, so.
Yeah, there's,
One dissenter to speak.
right, yes.
Good evening, I'm Terry Boone. I'm a little farther down on West Virginia. I'm at 733 West Virginia Avenue, and I'm here to speak in support, not as eloquently as everybody else has. I have 6 bullets that I want to address in support of this project. One is community revitalization. This project transforms a condemned, blighted property into a vibrant small business that will enhance the neighborhood's appearance and safety. 2, family-friendly business. An ice cream shop is a perfect fit near the neighborhood park. It encourages more families to walk, gather, and spend time in the area. 3, local investment. Adelheid Shelp is a local builder investing time and resources to improve the community. This should be encouraged and supported. Her work in the Greenmont neighborhood and the local Home Builders Association speaks for itself. 4, economic benefit. The shop will generate employment, increase foot traffic to the neighborhood and park, and could stimulate nearby businesses, all without heavy infrastructure needs. 5, public safety and perception. Rehabilitating the building will deter vandalism or illegal activity that can be common with neglected properties. And finally, number 6, no major downsides. Unlike other commercial projects, an ice cream shop brings minimal noise, traffic, or environmental impact. It's low impact and high value. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Morgantown's 301 March. So I just want to point out that as part of the 2033 comprehensive plan that was just completed last year, neighborhood businesses are a priority in action in a number of places, right? So this is something that our city, our municipality is working towards. I think that's important to recognize in this case. It struck me that, this is that B1 postage stamp in the middle of an R1 district, right? But it didn't have the off-site parking already, right? So, but it was B1. It was zoned B1 before. So, in order for somebody to come in and reactivate that property as B1 when it didn't meet the minimum parking requirements before to be B1. They would have to, I don't know that it could be done on that property. I'd like to see somebody do a parking space assessment on it and see if you could even fit 9 spaces on that property if you tried. But that just struck me that it was B1 before, it didn't have parking, and that was okay before.
That's a very good point.
You mentioned, Chris, you mentioned trends nationally and, moving towards these mixed-use kind of zoning and buildings in residential areas and neighborhoods, and that is absolutely 100% the case. The other trend is elimination of minimum parking requirements. And so I think that's something just to recognize, not that, the ordinance is the ordinance and you all compelled to uphold the ordinance, but, just because you mentioned trends, I think that's something worth mentioning. But, for all the same reasons that everybody else, this creates vibrancy, it promotes walkability and healthy community. Well, I guess the ice cream kind of counters that. but these businesses in our neighborhoods build communities. And Madeline stands out, Madeline Marie's in Greenmont stands out as an example of a business that it has one parking space on that property. And I live 301 Arch Street is
Right there.
immediately next to Madeline's. We don't have parking issues over there. And I see that restaurant every day of the week that they're open, full of my neighbors who have walked over there and patronized the place. And I think this would be a tremendous asset to First Ward, it'd be a tremendous asset to Jack Roberts Park.
Madeline's is an excellent point of comparison.
Yeah.
Very similar neighborhoods, too.
So, for all those reasons, I really hope you all approve this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle Trumbull, 1141 Charles Avenue. This is one I did come prepared to speak about. I'm here on behalf of myself, not speaking for all of council or anything like that, but as a Morgantown City Councilor and as a member of the Planning Commission, one of my personal goals has been to update our planning and zoning code to make it easier to create these types of neighborhood-based businesses. These are the kinds of establishments that give our neighborhoods character and identity and make them a desirable place for people to live. And I knew I should have went before Mark because I said, think about Greenmont, for example. It would not be the same type of neighborhood if it didn't have places like Jean's or places like Madeline's, which does not meet parking requirements that we would be putting in on that now if it were to go in. The future of Morgantown, in my mind, is really dependent on infill development and this type of revitalizing old spaces. Returning these types of properties to a productive use should be one of our major priorities. It's really low-hanging fruit, right? It's great for the city, it's great for residents. This building has been sitting empty for as long as I've been around Morgantown. And it's a downgrade to the neighborhood. It's empty, it's forgotten, even though it has historically been a commercial use. And as we pointed out, did not always have parking and meet the requirements. Adelheid is giving this building the potential to be reimagined into something totally cool. And I meant that pun, Gabe, I know. Ice cream cool. I personally can't wait. I brought my son. He promised me he would speak because we've been so excited since she started talking about this project. We can't wait for a summer to come when we can meet up at Jack Roberts Park with friends and just walk right up the street for some delicious ice cream. I think that in the hands of an entrepreneur and visionary like Adelheid, I'm confident that this spot can quickly become quirky, probably, everyone's a little quirky around here. We'll have lots of gnomes and mushrooms, but it's going to be a favorite neighborhood hangout, I think. People like Adelheid who are willing to take a chance and put their money where their mouth is about making Morgantown better is what is going to move Morgantown forward. They're the ones creating the vibrant community that we all say we want to live in, we all want to raise our family in. So those are my prepared comments, but I made a couple of extra notes based on conversation. I was a little, every time I come to one of these meetings, even Planning Commission, I look at the land use table and I'm always like, this isn't good, right? The definition, like the fact that this is being categorized as a fast food restaurant is a little odd to me. I thought that it made more sense like bakery. I know that only a couple of things are baked goods, but like we're selling desserts that people are gonna eat there or take down the street to the I thought that something like that, which would be a permitted use and would not be conditional, the parking would still clearly be, but the bakery itself could be a permitted use. And I also wanted to make the point that the church right down the street on Leonard, right across from the Jack Roberts parking lot, does not come with a lot of its own parking, but it has a very cohesive relationship with the park, and every Sunday you come down, that parking lot is full of people who are going to church. And Bow Park, I'm currently the chair of Bow Park through my role on council, we hold a lot of large events, concerts and things at Jack Roberts Park, and I never have an issue. I live in Woodburn, I'm not walking there, I drive over, I never have an issue, even on days where there's 100 people for Jazz on the Green who are not all from the neighborhood, some people are driving in. It's never been a problem to park along West Virginia immediately adjacent to this property.
Right.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Excellent points.
I see this has been good for Greenwell too.
Yeah.
That ice cream.
Yes.
Good evening, John Trumbull, 1141 Charles Avenue. I will try not to, I feel like there's going to be some overlap, but I did prepare some words, so I feel like I'm compelled to read them. I'm here tonight to speak in strong support of Adelaide's proposals and urge you to approve both of her requests before you this evening. As has been stated before, for a long time, the building at 324 Leonard Street has been an eyesore. It's dilapidated, it's deteriorating, it's empty, it's dark, many other adjectives. And despite being lactose intolerant myself, I view Adelaide's plan to bring a small, friendly ice cream shop as a chance to bring new life to that corner, turning a problem property into a positive spot for the neighborhood and for everyone who enjoys Jack Roberts Park. Imagine families stopping for a treat after playing in the park, or neighbors walking over on a summer evening, not getting into their cars and driving somewhere likely outside of city limits. The building, as we've discussed, is in a B1 neighborhood business district, and an ice cream shop, I think, fits the bill for this kind of use perfectly. It's a local serving business. It's a low-impact use. We're talking about cones and cups, not a large, noisy, high-volume establishment. It'll primarily serve the immediate First Ward community and park visitors, enhancing the neighborhood feel, not detracting from it. Adelheid Shop, sorry, that was a pun and I didn't intend it, is envisioned as a place that builds community, a place where people can connect. Granting her conditional use for a simple ice cream shop makes perfect sense here in my opinion. Regarding the parking variance, the building's old and the lot is small. It's common for properties in established neighborhoods like this. And these older buildings, they can't meet modern parking rules designed for newer, larger developments. And if we rigidly enforce these rules here, we risk this building staying empty and run down.
Yep.
Adelheid is requesting a variance because providing the full number of specified spots, it's just not feasible without, frankly, demolishing the building and making it entirely a parking lot, or it would make the project fiscally not feasible. But, I mean, a small ice cream shop, it's going to attract people on foot or bicycle or from the park. It doesn't generate the same parking demand as a larger establishment, and many customers are going to be local residents who already live there. A lot of the spots would probably, like if there were dedicated spots, a lot of them would probably be open and not used. And granting this variance, to me, it's not about ignoring the rules, it's about applying them with common sense to achieve a greater good. It addresses the special conditions of this existing older property. It will eliminate an unnecessary hardship that's preventing a perfectly reasonable and positive use of the land. It allows the spirit of the zoning ordinance to support well-ordered and beneficial development to be met. And the benefit of a revitalized building, a new local business, and a wonderful neighborhood amenity far outweighs the need for a few extra parking spaces that, as I said, probably wouldn't even be used most of the time. Supporting our plan aligns with many of Morgantown's goals as well. It encourages infill development using an existing structure instead of building on new undeveloped land. It puts a service right where people live, making our neighborhood more walkable or bikeable. It supports a local entrepreneur investing back into our community. It will make Jack Roberts an even better place for everyone. And it's not just this is not just about one small business. It's about the kind of neighborhoods we want. Do we want vacant buildings or vibrant local spots? Do we want to make it easier for small business, community-focused businesses to thrive? Adelheid has a good plan for a good business in the right place. I encourage approval of both of these requests. Thank you.
Thank you.
No dissent?
So, yeah, anyone else wishing to speak either in support of or in opposition to these cases? Seeing no one?
I would, either I could read it or someone from the board could read it, but there were requests to have these read as a part of the public part, so.
Specifically as part of?
The public record for their involvement.
Public comment. So I can read, I'll read the one of them.
Okay.
Dated,
Summarize it for us.
or do you want to summarize and just do an overview?
If you want to just choose one to read and I'll read the other two, then.
Okay, so in summary, all three pieces of correspondence are speaking in opposition to the proposed cases.
Correct, yeah. The three are speaking in opposition to the cases with concerns revolving around privacy disruption, noise disturbances, as well as patron volume from being on the property as well as leaving and entering the property. Additional concerns involving disturbances due to increased vehicle parking and traffic along the street, availability of said parking, as well as speeding, concerns about safety. There was also, I will note it, because it was written in, concerns about the zoning and changes of zoning. Just to reiterate, this doesn't affect the zone itself, it's B1. That isn't what this is about, no end result of how this goes. We'll change this from a business district, but some did write in kind of with that assumption maybe this had more impact on the zoning of this neighborhood. So that is a concern that they had, but that's not what's being discussed about, but to bring it up. And that kind of summarizes these up generally for those involving privacy, safety, parking availability, and everything else mentioned.
Okay. I would just like to state with regard to the correspondence in opposition to the cases, I just want to acknowledge that the parking concerns are not an insignificant consideration in these deliberations. It's an important factor or variable.
That was coming at it from trying to represent the neighbors that expressed dissent. So neighbors that are here outlined that there's no issue with parking. And like it's been pointed out, this is a very special use case scenario, and we don't want to stop the development of something that's going to totally revitalize this section of the neighborhood that is growing and doing well. The only thing I can probably anticipate is that you won't have enough people working, the line out the door, and people will be unhappy. And ice cream fast enough.
And additionally, everyone who addressed the parking concern, they're speaking from direct personal experience.
Right across the street.
They're right there. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, that's great.
I also want to mention Mr. Trumbull's, something you said, especially with regard to granting the parking variance, if we do, and I don't know exactly what we're going to do with regard to the parking, but it's going to alleviate hardship, because what's being proposed, we're requiring you to, with regard to the parking requirement, to a higher standard that the previous business operator, it was also Zone B before. Those requirements applied. But the owner-operator was not, I'm making the assumption that that person was not held to the same standard.
Some of our rules are antiquated.
Right, but it's almost as if what I'm trying to say is, we are holding you to a higher standard in terms of insisting that you meet that 9-spot requirement.
mean, I think
That's-
we're throwing it all out. My only concern is the ADA. Like, how do you make sure?
Yeah, I think we should make some accommodation for an ADA space,
Like, how do
for
you
sure.
handle that? I don't have an answer for that. Because you can't tap into the land.
And the public hearing is still open, by the way. So, we haven't closed the public hearing. Are you offering additional commentary or rebuttal, or?
I was going to mention that I have seen in our neighborhood specific on-street parking that's marked as disabled parking. So actually, I
Right.
think you can
Just a
create,
little sign.
it's a certain color.
Okay.
It's probably a slightly different shade of blue. So that might be a possibility.
Right. That's an excellent suggestion. Is there,
We don't
what,
notice that.
well, that would be one of our conditions. But would the city be able to work with,
Not being as knowledgeable of like the specifics of who would be in charge of that, I mean, obviously, since it's not their property, it'd be public, that wouldn't be enforceable on the applicants, but on the side of like the city or an organization like DOH or something like that, it would just entirely depend on if that is reasonable by their information, their code, their understanding to put that in there.
because I guess...
My understanding is that those parking designations were requested by the property owner, the nearby property owner. So it could be that if this was purchased, then she could request disabled parking right there. So you should look into it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if those are if there is like, ADA parking designations outside of like homes, that would be the resident requesting that from, I think the DOH, but it's from entity, and entity involving, ADA compliance, individuals.
Because the burden the burden to make provision for that ADA spot falls on the owner-operator, but
And it's off.
it's public parking.
Yeah, it's off-street requirements, so yeah, potentially, but,
How would we do
the concern being, at least I potentially have with it, is if you would make that a condition and they go to whatever, that entity would be, and they tell her no, it's not, based on their statistics or whatever, structure they have,
I don't wanna make that a
they deny that. I can't imagine why, but that, I don't, how would we navigate that then, since it's a public property, public space, not her property?
Well, just to cite two examples real quick, Madeline's is one. She requested one off-street parking space that has a business hours sign only, that is for her business. And then the church on Green Street requested an ADA spot right in front. So they also were granted.
And that's definitely there.
That's all, both of those are just public parking.
Okay, that's
And
great.
then
So-
There's precedence there.
if you apply properly.
Let's go with that.
And explain that, then they
And then-
can grant these spaces.
And then in terms of the other spaces, it's on-street public
I'm
parking.
good with everything else, that's good.
If you would like to impose a condition,
We need to make some accommodation in cooperation with the city for an ADA designated and compliant space immediately adjacent to the property.
Just make it a condition that she apply for one then.
Yeah.
I like that, I should apply for it. I don't want to make it that it shuts the business down, that suddenly she doesn't get it, and then it shuts the opportunity down.
All right, let's go with that.
you are proposing to add a condition for what?
Requests an ADA.
That she make application for an ADA compliant and accommodative ADA space immediately adjacent to the property. And then, in terms of the other spaces, the public parking takes, in my view, takes care of that requirement.
I was being devil's advocate for all of these people, but
So why don't, okay, so, is there anyone else wanting to speak in support or in opposition to these combined cases? Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. I'm going to make a motion that, should we accept the findings of fact separately for the
Yeah.
separate cases? I think we should do that.
For the voting on it, you will have to vote for them separately.
Yeah.
But before that, really quickly, the amended condition, I've written it down as, make application for a compliant ADA space adjacent to the property on street. Does that sound sufficient for what the board is requesting?
Let's read it again.
They are to make application for a compliant ADA space adjacent to the property on street. Okay, someone would have to first it as well as second it.
I'll first it.
I'll second.
First it, okay.
So we have a motion for a condition applying to VAR 25-026.
Parking.
And seconded by Ms. Cook, so we have that motion, which is going to apply to the findings of fact that we are going to make a motion on next. So I make a motion to accept the findings of fact for VAR 25-026, 324 Leonard Street.
A second.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the findings of fact for VAR 25-026 by me, seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, so do we have a motion to grant the variance request pertaining to the street parking requirements subject to the condition?
I move that. I'll second.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to grant the variance request for VAR 25-026, moved and seconded by Mr. DeWitt. How do we vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we've granted that variance pertaining, and we took the parking variance first because it's more nettlesome. We're going to go ahead and move to CON 25-027. We have findings of fact pertaining to this specific conditional use request. It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move that we accept the findings of fact for CON 25-027. This pertains to permitted land use in this B1 neighborhood business district. So we have a motion to accept the findings of fact, seconded by Ms. Cook, only to accept the findings of fact. How do we vote?
Aye.
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 Okay. And then we need a motion to grant the conditional use request for CON, I'll make that motion, CON 25-027, 324 Leonard Street. So we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
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 So, Ms. Schultz, we have granted both your requests. Decisions rendered by this board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County. Please keep in mind that, and you will receive written notification on both the granted requests by planning, but any work that you undertake in that 30-day appeals window, you do at yourself financial risk. Thank you very much. Good luck with your endeavor. Thank you for coming down this evening.
Like 2 months ago?
Yeah, and I forget, I know, and I forget why it's coming back to us.
Stick around for the rest?
Mr. Thompson, your son didn't have a chance to speak.
He had comments prepared, I guess.
I'm sure. Thank you all for coming down this evening. Okay, so we are going to move to, VAR 25-031, Paris Frick, 350 East Brockway Avenue, request by Paris Frick for variance relief from section 1369.06 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding signage. City Tax District 10, 6th Ward, Tax Map 35, Parcel 9, in the B2 Service Business District.
Well, they're not here, let's just, save it for
I move that we table this. No, I'm just kidding.
Just let me read it out.
Yeah, go ahead.
The applicant is seeking variance relief from section 1369 regarding permitted sign design and construction standards. The applicant is planning to use a 23-foot by 3-foot banner as well as a wall sign at the reference address. It is made of a vinyl-like material and will be attached to the structure with screws. Please see the attached reference. It is up there. This shows the site where this is going to be located at the Breakfast Cafe, kind of in where what's related around to it. And then this is the sign that they're planning to put up, that banner, that 23 by 3 foot banner.
Well, it's up.
It's already up. It's been up.
Correct.
I think it's a good placeholder for the sign they need to make.
Yeah.
Yep, the banner is currently up. They're working through the permitting process to get it properly permitted, contingent obviously on this variance, because otherwise, per our ordinance, banners of really any type are looked at as temporary signs, and they want to have this as a permanent wall sign.
No.
And I will finish out my...
So can you speak, so this is really and truly proposed as permanent signage?
That's what they're doing.
Yes, because I'm almost at the end, I'll just read out the final part of what they're asking for, and then I'll address any concerns or questions, just to, not jump between it. So based on the conditions listed above, the applicant requests the following, being the variance relief in regard to a permanent banner wall sign. And that would conclude the end of the request, as well as the information on it. I'll take questions from the board in any order.
I have first, Ms. Cook.
Yeah, I have questions, like,
No way.
hold on a minute, yes, I understand that, but what size would the sign, a permanent sign be?
Interestingly enough, that actually would be okay size-wise, because they are, the building there has 2 streets, so it has, I don't want to say double frontage, because that's technically, I think, something different, but we use both street sides of the building to calculate that, and since it's so short in height, it can be longer. So if they were, for example, to have to put another sign of there, they could keep that same footprint,
Okay, my
size-wise.
second question is then, how long does the city generally give them to change out a temporary sign to a permanent sign? Or what's the time frame?
I believe temporary sign, it was in the range of like 30 days to 60. It just depends on if it's for like a new business, we're open, or a lot of our temporary signs are actually like fireworks, being, like during around 4th of July, people put up those tents and have like, TNT, fireworks. Those signs, I believe, kind of last for that amount of time, which is probably still about that 30 to 60 days. But generally, that's kind of the time frame that we're okay with, just as like a blanket without, special circumstances or uses or things like that. 30 to 60.
And they're proposing this to be their sign, like permanent sign?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Can you, so can you speak to, they've also got the, I don't know what type of sign it is, but to the right, breakfast, or whatever it is, now open. Do regs, is there any bearing on that type of, it's planted in the ground, it's not permanent, is that permitted?
That would,
because I'm almost more comfortable with that than I am with this.
I even went there and put a sign up, but it's been a little disconnect between, but any signage, temporary signage can be of any kind, really, within the reasons of, like, you could have it on your wall, or you could put something up. That would be, my guess is that would be either a post and panel sign or a monument sign, depending on whatever that signage would be. But we would still have to look at it, and it'd have to be permitted.
Is this different from the owner who had, like, wasn't this like something else for like 10 minutes?
Yeah,
months
it's,
ago?
it was...
The Wicked Saloon.
Yeah, okay, that.
Wicked Water.
No, it was something else after.
It was the World Food Expo or something like
Was
that.
it? I didn't see that.
The World Food Market or something like
It
that.
was something else between, yeah.
It was temporary signage too.
Yeah, it's different owners. I believe I heard somebody bring that up or ask that. It is, to my understanding, completely different people.
All right, so that's not like
I'm
their
just
second
really,
temporary sign.
I don't know. Let's open the public hearing.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
arguing with ourselves right now.
Okay. We are, anything further to add, Mr. Thompson? No?
No, other than, just to clarify, yep, they're asking for this to be their kind of permanent wall signage.
So it's a materials variance, for materials.
Yeah, that's what it's kind of categorized under, because per our just definitions of how we look at banners, they're temporary signs.
Yep.
But what they're asking for is a wall sign, and it makes the most sense by code to say this is a material variance.
Oh.
If the,
For the...
right, because as a wall sign, the material is not, it's not compatible with this purposed as a wall sign.
As a wall
Because
sign,
of its
it is
material.
being a banner.
Right.
Yeah, they could have a vinyl wall sign, but that it would, not a banner, even though the banner's made of vinyl material.
Could they encase it? Could they?
Like with a cap? In the hypothetical of if it's possible, as long as they don't go above.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sure, just throwing that out there. All right, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Thank you very much. So we are opening the public hearing for VAR 25-031, 350 East Brockway Avenue. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, now is your opportunity to do so.
Eric, out of curiosity, do you have anything you'd like to add? If you can hear me.
Was that for me?
Just out of curiosity, if you had anything you'd like to add in regards to the signage variance?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay,
As our other member of the public here.
okay.
Okay.
And there's no correspondence on this?
No written ones that I've been made privy to.
Okay, and then are there conditions, just so that we can take that into, before we close the public hearing?
Yep, I'll read those out. For this one, staff have no objections to the applicant's request for variance relief. Please see the attached application of findings of fact, as well as if the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the applicant variance relief, from Section 136504 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code, the new restaurant fast food shall be subject to the following conditions, being any other modifications or changes to the site plan shall be compliant with the city's Planning and Zoning Code, or the applicant shall seek variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals. It wasn't a miss-up for restaurant fast food, because they are a restaurant and they're a new restaurant, so it just made sense as a part of their kind of whole thing to be signage for that.
Right.
But this isn't contingent on their use or anything like that. I don't think they're restaurant fast food, but that's irregardless to what we're having a
Right.
conversation about. Just wanted to reference, they are a restaurant, signage for this restaurant.
Is the gentleman on the phone representing this case?
No, he's representing the next case for the WVI Institute. The applicant doesn't appear to be here. I've been out, so I'm not sure if they've corresponded as to why they cannot make it, but I'm not privy to why. My last knowledge, they were planning to attend, so
Right.
I'm unsure.
All right. Right, thank, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, as a board member, I mean, I feel like to allow that is, you have to allow everybody else to do it then too. And I think if they're going to be a permanent business, then they've got to have permanent signs. And, I mean, I'm willing to give them 60, allow 60 days to do it. And-
The maximum as allowed, yeah.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
code.
I'm allowing, you know, and they're gonna have to adjust it, you know, I don't know what their hurdles are, but, you know, they'll have to decide what they can do with it and how, you know, how they wanna put it up, but I feel like it has to be permanent. I mean, that's what we would ask any other business to do.
Right, right. Thank you for that. We're going to close the public hearing, not seeing anyone else present to speak in opposition or in support of. Okay, so I totally agree. And additionally, I mean, it's walkway, but it's really close to the Earl Core commercial corridor.
I don't want to belabor this one.
It's setting
here and
not a good precedent
It's a good precedent.
at all.
I'd rather we just, we can accept the findings of fact, right? We have to do that, right?
Yes.
Accept them. I mean, I will motion to accept the findings of fact.
Hold on, what are we doing?
Let's look at those.
Yeah, I believe you can you guys can deny a findings of fact?
Oh, okay.
I believe you kind of get to choose, do you accept the findings of fact as written? Would you like them amended? Would you, you know, those considerations there. And then as well, you would do a vote on the variance
Wait a minute,
itself.
no, no,
So
no, okay, yeah.
potentially, you could ask maybe for, you know, findings of fact, and that maybe you'd reconsider, or, you know, it would be up to the board, but those would be your two things to vote on. Acceptance of the findings of fact as presented, and then approval or denial of
I just
their
don't see where
request.
there's a hardship for why he wants a banner.
You know, he does mention there's no freestanding sign pole, but doesn't have anything to do with the ability to affix permanent signage to the facade.
Bakery, because we don't have an oven. Okay, get one.
Yeah.
Like, you get the front of the building.
Get the front of it, yeah, figure it out.
It's, I mean, it's, so
we really need to write our own findings of fact then. I mean,
Do we?
presumably.
We just deny it?
Don't we just deny them?
You could do that, yeah, you could, if.
But we have to have findings of fact to support our decision.
Oh.
You could potentially, I mean, yeah, you could deny the findings of fact with whatever reasoning the board has to deny it, and then
Well, yeah.
with the variance request, you could either approve or deny it, kind of based on those considerations or other considerations. So.
we'll just phrase the second paragraph, you know, he references there's no freestanding sign pole or anything of that nature.
Quickly mention, Paris is a female, I believe, to my understanding. As she, every time I've interacted with her.
I'm sorry.
That's how, no, just, yeah, there's nothing in here, if they were, you know.
She then,
but
sorry.
just to have it on, you know, the record of who we're referencing.
Harold.
I mean, we can just say that we don't find that there's an unnecessary hardship.
Yeah.
Or that allowing the variance would allow the intent of the zoning ordinance to be observed.
The building facade affords a good surface on which to affix
I like what Matthew
permanent
said.
signage.
But also there is, and the point, like, we can just also add a statement, I don't know if this is something we can do, is say like, you know, this sign will hold for 60 days. You may use this sign for 60 days if you want to continue business, otherwise.
And that'll give you time to get your new one.
Well, I think that'll be automatic. If we deny it, then they're gonna be on the clock to do something.
Within that 60-day window.
Yeah, they will have to, because it's technically a little different, because it's work that's already been done, but we're usually kind of similar in that 30 to 60 timeframe of, will be reasonable, give you an amount of time to either seek variance, which is what we've done in this case, actually, of, hey, you know, this was put up already, but seek a variance, and depending on how that goes.
I don't think they need a variance.
But, I mean, they affixed the banner knowing that in terms of permanent signage, what the requirements are, and yet they decided to follow through and mount the banner.
Well, they were hoping you would let it go.
At least to their knowledge of it, I believe that this is their first time, like, working or trying to do something in Morgantown, at least the way they've communicated with me.
Are they younger? Are they younger?
I would say not very old, younger, yeah. And they seem to, you know, they put it up.
There, I mean, if somebody's entrepreneur starting a business, it's a great idea, that's cool.
Yeah, according to them, at their previous location, they used the banner as their signage, and that, to them, it made sense of, oh, we'll just do that here.
Yes,
And then
that
that's
was a
kind of where
gift or
that kind of conversation came up of, actually, our city of Morgantown code actually has it not permitted, as it is. You can either, you know, go within our requirements or seek a variance, and they
That's where
were.
they sought a variance.
And that's
So
what.
they must operate a similar business somewhere else.
They did.
Well, I have this banner,
Yeah,
she
they-
does say, I had this banner gifted to me from a regular at our old location.
The old location has closed, and this is now their new location.
So they're repurposing it here.
They've moved shop, they're not operating, to my knowledge, their previous location, and this is their only
Do you know where the previous
business.
location was?
They've told me, but I don't.
Not in Morgantown?
I don't believe so.
Different,
That's at least, that
a
was
municipality with different zoning.
different zoning laws.
I like
some
the
requirements.
verbiage that you said.
Yeah, I do too,
I think we use that for
to deny it.
deny the findings of fact. What, Matthew, if you want to restate that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just stating like the standards in conversely, well, just that we don't find that granting the variance will eliminate an unnecessary hardship and permit the reasonable use of the land. And we also don't believe that granting the variance is going to allow the intent of the zoning ordinance to be observed.
Well, and additionally, what's the unnecessary, what's the unusual hardship?
There's none even listed here. I mean, she's just,
So.
the findings of fact just state that it doesn't need electricity.
I will
It doesn't,
vote that we don't accept.
Right,
finding
don't
of
accept
fact.
the finding.
So, can you restate that verbiage, and then if you want to make the motion, I move that
He
we,
wrote it down.
okay. Do we need to restate it?
because I'm just saying, because we have to have a findings of fact to support a decision either way, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we reject their findings of fact, we still need, we have to put something.
No, that rejection counts as our, part of our, if we reject the findings of fact.
Because it's
that's-
contrary to their proposed finding of fact.
All right, then let's just reject them.
So someone will have to motion, and then second, a vote
I will motion
to,
the rejection of the findings of fact
Findings
based
of
on
fact.
Matt's conditions that you wrote down a second.
that have been amended.
That are contrary to the original findings of fact.
Yes.
So, okay, so Mr. DeWitt made a motion to reject the findings of fact based upon the verbiage proposed by Mr. Misfit, that are contrary to the original findings of fact. That motion was seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye. We're dissenting, right?
Dissenting, right? This is a dissent thing? I say dissent.
No, we're voting in support of your motion, which is contrary to the original
So we're saying, yes,
findings of
yes.
fact.
Yes, it is.
So we're actually voting in support of your, which basically invalidates or nullifies the original set of findings of fact as seconded by Ms. Cook. So we're voting in the affirmative.
Yes.
If we're, yeah.
Correct,
Okay.
100%.
So we have a motion that's contrary to the original findings of fact. It's seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So based on that nullification of the findings of fact on which this case is based, we can't grant the variance. Do we need, we don't really need a motion for this.
So to put a motion, so I'm going to put a motion to.
Okay, so
Accept.
Not grant the variance.
we are not, I move that we not grant the requested variance for VAR 25-031 based on the nullification of or the rejection of the findings of fact as originally proposed. Okay, so we have a motion not to grant the variance request for VAR 25-031, seconded by Mr. DeWitt. How do we vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, so If the applicant is still with us, you will receive, we have not granted your variance request for primarily the materials variance. You will receive written notification 7 to 10 business days from planning. Any decision rendered by this board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County. And depending upon what you elect to do, any work that you undertake with respect to that appeals process, you do at your sole financial risk. Thank you. Okay. Last case, we're going to move to our last case, VAR 25-040. Eric Winglar, 445 Van Voorst Road, request by Eric Winglar on behalf of West Virginia University Hospitals, Inc., for variance relief from Section 1365.04 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code regarding bicycle storage requirements, City Tax District 15 in the 7th Ward, Tax Map 6, Parcel 76.1, 76.2 in the B2 Service Business District. Interesting, okay. Yes, Mr. Thompson.
I would also just, they looked like there were some connectivity issues. Eric, are you back in here and can you hear us?
Yes, Taylor, I'm here, thank you.
Okay, yep, I just wanted to double check before I went into the report.
No, very good, thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Mr. Thompson, is it B2? I thought this was an R.
They were here previously with the Board of Zoning Appeals, as well as they did go to the Planning Commission to kind of get some rezoning done, as well as some variances, and I believe, and Eric can probably more accurately correct me if I'm wrong, at the last BZA meeting, one of their potential conditions was that they went through the Planning Commission to get that approved, but that actually happened before our meeting, and that was granted to them, and it was rezoned, and the parcels were corrected. I believe so. Eric, is that accurate?
Yeah, sorry, so I just want to make sure I heard what you said. We did get rezoned, yes, to
Yes.
B2.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe so, but I just, wanted to double check with you. They went through the commission and that their parcels.
Does that materially impact the bike storage? From an R to a...
Not compared to how we looked at it last time, because there was similar concerns with it. It's more tied to their use, and we actually were forward-looking last time, and it was from the perspective of them already being a B2 in that discussion, because it wouldn't have been possible if they were denied that planning commission and those requests for that. So it was a condition that was removed before it got to you guys, because it was actually approved before the meeting. So everything from our previous conversation was already with their current and new zoning and considerations like that in mind.
So we've already done this.
The information and such, it has, what they're asking for this time is different, but...
Can you speak to the specific difference? Is it primarily because of the zoning district change?
No. So last time they were here, they received variance for long-term bicycle storage.
Right.
And the conversation was that they would provide short-term bicycle storage.
Right.
But after more work with them and review, I'll just get into it and read what they're requesting and kind of explain it through there. The applicant is currently seeking variance relief from Section 1365 involving bicycle storage requirements. The applicant plans to provide 7 short-term bicycle spaces out of the 28 spaces, bicycle spaces at the referenced address. These storage areas provided will be outside of the 50-foot entrance requirement, but will still be on site. Then the first kind of provided source is just, again, a kind of view from top to down of the whole site and kind of the range it's affecting for notices and things like that, just to kind of remind us where we're looking at there. The next one is, it's a little hard to see, it's a little bit easier to see on the packet. The kind of zoomed in near the entrance of their, of the I Institute there, showing where those racks are. There'll be 4 bike racks, providing 8 spaces to the left of kind of the entrance, down where if you see those kind of little dashes and cut through squares by where those passenger cars are, as well as just kind of a general layout of how that front of that institute will look like. So that's kind of where they're going to be providing those 8 spaces that they are going to provide, which also would need to be within 50 feet of the entrance, which is in the bottom kind of right corner of that curve. And so it is outside of that 50-foot requirement as well, but those 8 spaces will be provided. And that leads into the conditions listed above. Based on that in the packet, the applicant is requesting variance relief regarding 21 short-term bicycle storage spaces, as well as variance relief from the section of code regarding the 50-foot minimum distance from the primary entrance to this use. And then that kind of concludes that staff report.
Okay. So fewer spaces outside the 50-foot.
Yes, what they're asking for is they will be able to provide 8 of the total 28 spaces, but those spaces that they will be providing will be out of the 50-foot range that is required from distance from the door.
What is the provider?
And then Eric can probably speak during his section, maybe a bit more to the details on it, but yeah, what they're asking for is variance of 21 spaces out of the 21 that is required, and to be allowed to put them farther than 50 feet away from the primary entrance to the building for short-term spaces.
That's
Yeah.
reasonable. That's reasonable.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, you
Okay.
gotta go in order, though.
Okay. So, anything further? Nope. Anything further from the applicant to add?
No, not really, other than just obviously the reason for the request is just trying to be practical with the amount of spaces for parking, bike parking that'll actually get used. So that's really all it is. It's got nothing, no other bearing. It's really just all about what we think is actually practical for this particular type of building and for this particular client, so.
Right, all right, thank you.
Also, just for the record, Eric, could you just state your name and also your address? And then
Thank you.
that'll...
Thank you very much.
Sure, yeah, Eric Winglar, 123 West 5th, Royal Oak, Michigan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, VAR 25-040, now's your chance to do so. Seeing no one, we're opening, and then by not seeing anyone, we're closing.
This stuff, nobody's going to bike up there, right? That's not a massive biking area anyways.
Well, I mean, it's,
I'm just saying.
no, but it's on
I'm just
campus.
trying to think of like the safety of bikers. We don't have bike lanes around there yet. I mean, there's one.
It's more pedestrian oriented than it is bike oriented.
I'm just saying, I mean, at 50 feet, that's decent if you're trying to create shelter where people bike in the rain, you want to get inside. I'm just trying to think of like some devil's advocate.
Yeah, because you're right, there really isn't a dedicated bike lane on Patterson.
No,
The closest
Patterson's very
one is
dangerous.
University. There's one along University, but that's
This
it.
is very dangerous. And bike them.
What's the main road here?
Van Voorhees.
Oh, okay.
It's like a 4-lane.
Yeah, it's not a good,
It's not a good bike ride.
I see people coming out from like the housing or what is it, or the hospital, you know, stuff over there, but again, he's still providing the spaces, the
Yeah,
requirements,
I'll
so
go
it's
with
not-
that.
Yeah, I'm good with
Right.
that as well. I just wanted to kind of add some flavor to it.
And the outside, the 50-foot, that's just, what's driving that is just the configuration of the site, of
Yeah.
just what's already there.
Yeah, at least in, and Eric again could add more, but in conversations with them, to provide those spaces or the additional, I believe they said it just kind of didn't, it was just size-wise not really as feasible, to especially get all those spaces within that 50 foot while still having people access the building. And then Eric, you can correct me if that is a wrong interpretation.
Yeah, sorry, Sheila, I have a hard time hearing you there, just about something to do with the 50-foot radius, being within the 50-foot. Could you just restate that, please?
I mentioned, to my understanding, you're providing the 8 spaces where you are, because if you were to fit them or additional spaces within that 50 feet, with how the building's kind of laid out, it wouldn't really be feasible for pedestrian traffic use.
That's right. Yeah, it would be, I mean, it'd be very difficult to get, all these spaces within a 50-foot radius. Most of our parking, as you'll notice in the rest of the site, even our ADA parking is all within the parking structure, so I don't think it's unreasonable where it's located currently, where we're showing to locate it. It's very, very close to the front of the building. I think it's, like I say, what is practical for who's actually going to use these bike parking spaces. If it became an issue where we saw more people, more staff likely, rather than users, with staff using it and wanting more parking, we would be more than happy to provide more, but I think at this point, this is what makes the most sense.
Yep. And, I mean, that's referenced in the finding of fact. If a future user of the site decided more bike storage was desirable, this could be accommodated. What's being proposed is it's a reasonable development of the site with respect to short-term bike storage. The end. All right, so anything further to add from anyone? Okay, I'm going to move that we accept the findings of fact for VAR 25-040.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept findings of fact for the variance request, seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion to grant the variance?
I will motion to grant the variance.
Seconded.
We have a motion by Mr. DeWitt to grant the variance for this case, VAR 25-040, seconded by Mr. Misfelt.
I think there's a condition.
Oh, and can we just read that condition back into the record?
Yeah, to reference it, just as additional note, staff have no objections to the applicant's request for this variance relief, as well as if the Board of Zoning Appeals does grant the applicant a variance relief from Section 136504 of the city's code, the institute shall be subject to the following conditions, being any other modifications or changes to the site plan shall be compliant with the city's planning and zoning code, or the applicant shall seek variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals. And that is the only condition on this.
The only condition. Okay. So, subject to that condition, we do have a motion to grant the variance for VAR 25-040, seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So, Mr. Weinblau, we grant your variance request with respect to the short-term bike storage spaces. You will receive written notification from Morgantown Planning, 7 to 10 business days. Any decision rendered by this board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County. Keep that in mind, and any work that you undertake during that appeals window, you do at your sole financial risk. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, so any additional announcements? I think you do. Did you want
to mention it to the record, the planning department, me and Ricky Yeager have been working on reformatting our kind of staff reports and documents provided to the Board of Zoning Appeals after considerations and concerns regarding the current one. And we actually will be having a new one for the Board of Zoning Appeals hopefully by next time. It's currently already been, for those who are still here interested, it was at the last Planning Commission meeting as kind of their version of it. So that could be a way to get a little look at it ahead of before you guys receive it, and maybe any comments or concerns you might have for that, if you're interested. But yeah, either I'm really going to try for next meeting to have it, but if not, definitely 100% by the one after that, and it will hopefully be able to fix a decent amount of the concerns that have been had, to just being able to read it more clearly and more and have it flow better as well. But that's kind of our announcement for the board.
Sounds great.
Excellent. All right, I move that we adjourn this regular meeting for Wednesday, May 21st in council chambers, or city chambers. Do we have a second?
I second.
And we are adjourned.